On today's episode of Locked on Wild, Filip Gustavsson is having a Vezina caliber season for the Minnesota Wild, but I've got one stat in which no goalie can touch him.
Hey, this is Matt Boldy, and you're listening to Locked on Wild.
You're Locked on Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is happening, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Locked on Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network. We are your team each and every day. And we thank you for making Locked on Wild your first listen each and every day as well. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. Today's episode of Locked on Wild is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. On today's episode of Locked on Wild, we will make the case for Filip Gustavsson being amongst the best goalies in the NHL. We'll take a look at what a potential long-term extension could look like for him. And we've got one stat in which Filip Gustavsson leads the entire world amongst NHL goalies. My name is Seth Toupal, host of Locked on Wild, credentialed media member, and host of the show since 2021. And a question that I have found myself often asking throughout the course of this season is, where would the Minnesota Wild be without Filip Gustavsson? And I don't know if anybody knows where the Wild would be, because you're not just talking about somebody who has solidified the goaltending position for the Wild since he came here, but you're talking about somebody who routinely is amongst the best goalies in the league. Let's just take a look at the stats this year. And we have filtered out, because there are a handful of goalies that have gotten maybe 2 to 3 starts that have been really, really good. But if you're looking at, say, save percentage or things along those lines, those guys are going to rise to the top. So we have tried to filter out the backups and the rookies, or even the players that have started 1 or 2 games that have had really good seasons. We're talking strictly the starters. So we are going with a minimum of 40 games started amongst goalies in the NHL to get a sense of where Filip Gustavsson is at with his games. Now, as far as games started go, let's just take a look at that to start. Gustafson currently 10th in the NHL in starts with 50. The goalies that have 50 or more include Andre Vasilevsky, Connor Hellebuyck, Igor Shesterkin, UC Saros, Ilya Sorokin, Jake Ottinger, Sam Montembeault, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, Jeremy Swayman, and Filip Gustavsson. Now, Jordan Binnington and Mackenzie Blackwood are close, as are Joey Daccord and Stuart Skinner. They're 2 away. And then you've got Sergei Bobrovsky, Elvis Merzlikins, Kirill Vejmelka. They're all within 4 of getting to that magic mark of 50. Jacob Markstrom, Kevin Lankinen, Dustin Wolf, they're all at 44. So they could, depending on how things play out, but we're trying to get just an idea of the tried and true starters in the NHL. And you think of the names like Andre Vasilevsky, like Connor Hellebuyck, like Igor Shesterkin, UC Saros, Jake Ottinger, Ilya Sorokin. These are all names that we associate as bona fide starters at the NHL level. Well, where does Filip Gustavsson stand amongst them? He currently sits, Gustafson does, 6th in wins with 29. The only goalies with more are Sergei Bobrovsky, who has 30, Logan Thompson, who has 31, Jake Ottinger, who has 34, Andre Vasilevsky, who has 35, and Connor Hellebuyck, who is leading everybody in wins with 41. So he is 12 off the pace as far as wins go in 4 fewer games started. But Gustafsson stands a really good chance of the 8 games left. Gustafsson stands a really good chance to get to 54 starts. There are a couple of back-to-backs which are going to obviously mean Marc-Andre Fleury will get in on the action. But he stands a really good chance to get to 54, 55 starts on the season, which likely means that he's going to eclipse the 30-win mark and will remain amongst the leaders in that category for the NHL this year. Now, what about some of the other metrics? Save percentage. Filip Gustavsson is currently 4th amongst main starters in the NHL. Connor Hellebuyck is 1st at 924. Andre Vasilevsky is at 921. He's 2nd. Darcy Kemper's at 919. He is 3rd, and Filip Gustafsson's 4th with 918 as the save percentage. Goals against average. Filip Gustavsson is 6th in the league, tied with Mackenzie Blackwood and Sergei Bobrovsky with a 2.46. The only goalies that are better are Logan Thompson at 2.32, Andre Vasilevsky at 2.18, Darcy Kemper at 2.10, and Connor Hellebuyck at 2.06. Shutouts. Gustafson is currently tied for 2nd with Bobrovsky and Shesterkin. Vasilevsky and Hellebuyck are tied for 1st with 6. Bobrovsky, Shesterkin, and Gustafson each have 5. Filip Gustafsson's also, fun fact, one of only 2 goalies who has scored a goal this year. Ilya Sorokin is the other. And it's not as though Gustafsson has not faced a ton of shots on goal. He's currently 4th in the league in terms of shots against at 1,474. That is more than Connor Hellebuyck has faced. The only goalies that have faced more are Sorokin, Vasilevsky, and Shesterkin. That's more than UC Saros has faced. That's more than Jeremy Swayman has faced. More than Jake Ottinger has faced. So he's putting up these numbers while also facing a ton of shots. Now, there are other metrics in which Filip Gustafsson is even higher up on the list. Let's go to moneypuck.com here for a second. Goals saved above expected. What we mean here is the number of goals above average that a goalie is throughout the course of the season. Filip Gustafsson is 4th in the NHL right now at 21.1 goals saved above expected. So, easy way to think about that. He has been 21 goals better than your average goalie. And you think about how much you stretch that out over the course of a season. Gustafsson has played in 50 games. He started 50 games and is 21.1 goals saved above expected. That's almost 1/2 goal per game. And for a Minnesota Wild team dealing with inconsistencies in the scoring department and just having to really fight and claw to score goals, having a goalie that can take one off the board for you, that's very valuable for the Minnesota Wild. And as a result, there's really, I don't think, any way that the Wild are in the position that they're at right now, if not for what Filip Gustafsson has done so far this season. The only goalies that have saved more goals above expected this year are Igor Shesterkin, Logan Thompson, and Connor Hellebuyck. So for context, Gustafsson has more goals saved above expected than Andre Vasilevsky does. So he has been as advertised. He's been very good as far as goalies go. And the Wild have needed just about every bit of it. There is one stat, though, in which Filip Gustafsson is in a league of his own. And this is courtesy of Sport Logic. Most games stolen. Most games stolen. And what this means is where a goalie's goals saved above expected is greater than the score differential. For instance, let's say you win a game 2-1, but you had a goal saved above expected of 3. That would be a game stolen because you give up one more goal than you did, or even 1 or 2. You probably don't win that game. Filip Gustafsson has stolen 9 games this season. That is the most in the NHL. He has stolen 9 games by taking goals off the board. Jake Ottinger has 8. Igor Shesterkin and UC Saros both have 7. Again, that is from Sport Logic and shared on Instagram via Golden Era Hockey. So Filip Gustavsson stands alone in terms of games stolen this year. Think about all those road games in which Filip Gustavsson has just done a ton of heavy lifting to keep the Wild in games and then keep the opponent off the board. So Gustafson is very clearly one of the best goalies in the league so far this season. But what does that say about what happened to him last year? Well, we'll take a look at his numbers last year and see where they rank between his season 2 years ago, his season this year, and his season last year to try to get a sense of what is real and what's the mirage and what's the trend. We'll talk about all that as we continue today's episode of Locked on Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked on Wild is brought to you by FanDuel. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, and even who is cutting down the nets. There's a full table of games on this weekend, so you have plenty of chances to get in on the action. And even better, if you're a fan of Major League Baseball, the MLB season is underway as well. So if you want to throw $5 on the Minnesota Twins to win in tomorrow's game against the St. Louis Cardinals, you can do so. If you want to pick your favorite team to advance into the Elite Eight, you can do so. There are no shortage of options for you on FanDuel to take that $5 bet, win, and turn it into $200 in bonus bets. So visit FanDuel.com right now and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked on Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked on Wild your first listen each and every day. We are your team each and every day as well. Continuing our deep dive into Filip Gustavsson. And I want to provide some contextual stats as well. Just to look at where Filip Gustavsson ranks in key categories amongst all the best goalies since he became a starter for the Minnesota Wild in the 2022-2023 season. That's the crazy part about this, is that Gustafson is on his 3rd season with the Minnesota Wild after 2 years in Ottawa, in which the Senators just didn't really know what they had. And he got a cup of tea in one season. He got more games in another. The results were very, very mixed. Although his second season in Ottawa, he had some really good starts. The overall numbers not great. He comes to Minnesota, and his numbers have been pretty much sensational. I mean, all told, he's 71, 43, and 15 with Minnesota, 2.55 goals against average, a .916 save percentage, a quality start percentage of .631. We'll talk about that in a little bit here. But just look at where Filip Gustavsson ranks amongst all of the goalies in the NHL that have been starters. Again, we're trying to shift out the, flash in the pans, the young players that have gotten a few games in. We're talking tried and true starters. So we are looking at, over the last 3 years, goalies that have started at least 130 games as kind of a benchmark. So as far as wins go, nobody's topping Connor Hellebuyck. He and Jake Ottinger are the only 2 goalies that have over 100 wins. Hellebuyck is a staggering 115, 54, and 9. Ottinger is 106, 40, and 18. Andrei Vasilevsky has 99 wins in that span. Igor Shesterkin has 97. You got to go down to number 11 on this list in order to get to Filip Gustavsson. He has 71 wins over the last 3 seasons. So he has, not even just over half the wins that Connor Hellebuyck does. But look at the starts too. Gustafson has started 130 games. Hellebuyck has started 178 in that span. So you have, 48 game difference between the two. You've got a 36 game difference between Gustafson and Ottinger. Gustafson, even in that first season where he really started to get starts for the Minnesota Wild, he was not the number one guy. He was kind of the 1B. You've had Marc-Andre Fleury the last few years, and the start share has slowly shifted to Filip Gustavsson over the course of those years, to where we're finally seeing this year that it is a true 1 and a backup, as Gustafson already at 50 starts through the first 73 games of the season. But look at how some of these other numbers rank. And I'm talking all goalies from 2022, 2023 to now. Let's start with save percentage. Filip Gustavsson is number 2 in the league in that span. Connor Hellebuyck's at 921. Filip Gustavsson is at 916. Goals against average. Filip Gustavsson is 3rd in that span with a 2.55 goals against average. The only two that are better, Jake Ottinger at 2.52, Connor Hellebuyck at 2.33. How about shutouts? Gustafson is tied with Ilya Sorokin and Jeremy Swayman with 11, tied for 3rd. Connor Hellebuyck has 15. Sergei Bobrovsky, Andrei Vasilevsky, and Igor Shesterkin have 12. So he's amongst the league leaders in shutouts too. Another stat in which he is near the leaderboard this season, we talk about goalie point shares, an estimate of the number of points contributed by a player due to his play in goal. I use this for defense quite a bit. Goalie point shares. Filip Gustafsson's 3rd in the league with 11.7 this year. Connor Hellebuyck and Andrei Vasilevsky are the only two that are better. Quality starts percentage starts with a save percentage greater than your average save percentage for the year, or on nights in which you face fewer than 20 shots, greater than 88.5. Filip Gustavsson has 37 such starts of his 50, which is good for a 74% quality start percentage. Anything over 60% in terms of quality start percentage is considered very good. 50% or less is bad. League average is roughly 53. Filip Gustavsson is at 74%, which puts him amongst regular starters number 2 in the league. So you are getting 74% of the time, you're getting right around a 90 save percentage, slightly above. 74% of the time, Filip Gustafsson's in net. I mean, I can go on and on and on with these stats, but every picture that we look at, it paints Filip Gustafsson as a bona fide starter in this league and amongst one of the best in the NHL. Now, how much of that is factored by the Minnesota Wild defense? Well, that certainly helps. But again, I think the fact that Gustafsson is amongst the league leaders in shots faced this year, I think that can show you that he is, at the end of the day, Gustafsson is the one that's facing the shots and therefore the one that has to make the save. Just look at the numbers between last year to 2022-2023. So Gustafsson's speed bump year in 2023-2024, he was 20-18-4 in 43 games started. He had an .899 save percentage. Bump that up to .918 this year. He had a 3.06 goals against average. That's down to 2.46. It was a career high in starts for him. 37 the previous year was his. It was more than double what he had in any previous season. His quality start percentage was 41.9. 18 of the 43 games, he had a save percentage better than his average save percentage, or on nights with 20 or fewer shots, better than 88.5. So only 18 of those such games. Goals saved above expected, he was at -5 last year. This year, based off of hockeyreference.com, he's at 25.5. So I think for Filip Gustavsson, there was just so much chaos and turmoil in front of him last year. Think about all the players that were injured, all the breakdowns defensively that the Wild had throughout the course of the season, but also the fact that Gustafson was in uncharted territory as far as a ton of starts go. And we know all the stories about the conditioning and just needing to put himself in better position to be able to get through a full season. And, he has bounced back and then some this year. So we said it too. Is Filip Gustavsson, and I don't even want to use the phrase, bad, because I think last year's numbers were buoyed by a couple of rough months. I think that's what buoyed his numbers up considerably. But is he as good as his numbers were in 2022, 2023? Is he more where his numbers were at last year? Well, ironically, the numbers have settled right in the middle. So I think it's safe to say that Filip Gustavsson is a bona fide starter, and you can even put him in a category of a good to great goalie in this league, and one that has the ability to steal games, one that has the ability to win you games based off his play in the net. Now, Gustafson is going to be a potential free agent heading into the final year of his contract next year. You've got Jesper Wallstedt in the midst. What does that mean for Gus's future in Minnesota? Well, we'll tell you why he should be a priority for the Minnesota Wild, just under Kirill Kaprizov in terms of extensions. We'll discuss, and we'll take a look at what the number might be as we continue today's episode of Locked on Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked on Wild is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Daylight savings snuck up on us again. I'm still trying to get used to it. And if you're feeling that lost hour of sleep, 5 Hour Energy has your back. The extra sunshine means more time for fun, but sometimes you need a little boost to power through. Whether you're staying up late watching the NCAA tournament, squeezing in a round of golf after work, or just trying to keep up with your busy day, 5 Hour Energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. This has been essential for me as somebody who went from a night owl to working early in the morning. I get to lunchtime and I have fumes left throughout the day. You need that extra push to get you through the rest of your day so you're not spending 3 or 4 hours with a nap in the afternoon. Summer is just about here, and you want to spend all of that time enjoying the great weather outside. So 5 Hour Energy can help keep you rolling through all of those lulls in your day. So head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, and peach mango. You can even build your own 12-pack or 24-pack and have it delivered right to your door. Need one now? Grab a 5 Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. They're everywhere. Stock up today and stay energized with 5 Hour Energy. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked on Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked on Wild your first listen each and every day. We are your team each and every day. Here's the plan for tomorrow. We will have a pregame episode for you, taking a look at the New Jersey Devils. We'll take a look at where the wild card chase sits right now. We'll give you an update on all the injuries. We've got a lot coming up for you. I should mention as well, it was noted today by the Minnesota Wild that David Jiricek is done for the season. He has a lacerated spleen. So Jiricek is done for the year, and now all sights have been set on the 2025-2026 season. We'll talk more about that on tomorrow's episode, as well as gear you up for the New Jersey Devils. But I want to get to one final point, because I don't think this is being talked about enough, and I do find it kind of funny that at the beginning of the season, there's a lot of talk about the need to offload Filip Gustavsson for whatever you can get for him, because you got to go with Marc-Andre Fleury and Jesper Wallstedt as your goalie tandem. And Gustafson, off of last year, is not somebody that you can build around. I would tend to disagree with that phrasing, but it does make you wonder, what is going to be the next deal for Filip Gustavsson? He signed that 3-year deal worth $11.25 million, cap hit each year of 3.75. That'll get him to his age 28 season. He'll be an unrestricted free agent after the 2025-2026 season. Now, because he is entering into the final year of his deal, that means that the Wild can start to look at the process of trying to sign him to an extension. And I'm going to tell you right now, based off of just seeing other teams, and I know the goalie position is a little on the volatile side, but we don't really know what we have with Jesper right now. I'm going to do a full dive into Jesper's season coming up here. But obviously it was a little bit of a lost season for Jesper between Iowa and Minnesota. And I think relying on him to make a quick turn to be a starter in 2 years is probably a little bit of a tall order. And the fact that Filip Gustavsson has been a top 10, probably more like a top 5 goalie in the league since he came into the league is a rare find, a rare huge win for Bill Guerin in that trade. These are the types of players that when you stumble upon them, need to be taken into consideration for keeping long term. And the numbers that I'm going to throw out is just the going rate for these types of goalies. It's going to be a substantial hike over what he's making right now. But that's the market rate for these types of goalies. If you let him go into free agency and you just say, we're going to go with Jesper and just free agent to be the backup, you're probably going to take a hit in the goaltending department. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, it doesn't have to be an 8-year deal. It doesn't have to be anything crazy like that. Most of these types of goalies have been signed to that type of a deal, but even 3-4 more years, which would get him to his age 32 season, and you're not getting to the point where you're over the hump, over the twilight. He still has plenty of hockey left in his career after that. As somebody who was a late starter, he didn't make the NHL until he turned 22, and he didn't start games on a full-time basis until he was 24. So there's not a worry about there not being any tread on the tires. But look at some of these extensions for goalies and the numbers that they put up before signing their big deals. Let's start with UC Saros. Saros has signed a couple of deals with the Nashville Predators since his entry-level contract. He signed a 3-year deal for $4.5 million after his ELC, and then signed a 4-year, $20 million contract after that. And then his most recent deal was the 8-year, $61.92 million deal that made him $7.74 million per season. Let's see where his numbers rank compared to where Filip Gustavsson is at. So from 2015, 2016 to 2017, 2018, Saros started 43 games, 21, 14, and 10, 2.42 goals against average, and a .923 save percentage. Gustafsson's numbers in his 3 seasons as a starter: 71, 43, and 15, 2.55 goals against, 916 save percentage. So it's pretty comparable to what UC Saros has done. And obviously Saros has taken huge steps forward after that initial 3-year deal. Connor Hellebuyck had his ELC. Then he signed a 1-year, $2.25 million deal. Then a big 6-year, $37 million contract, which got him $6.17 million per year. He just signed the mega deal, 7 years, $59 million to stay with Winnipeg, $8.5 million cap hit each season. Hellebuyck's numbers from 2015, 2016 to 2017, 2018, 83, 41, and 14, 2.55 goals against, 917 save percentage. Again, pretty comparable to Filip Gustavsson's numbers now. A few more starts, but still pretty comparable to where Gustafson's at. The goals against and the save percentage are basically identical before he got his mega extension. Jake Ottinger, he signed a little bridge deal, a 3-year, $12 million after his ELC was done, and now has just signed an 8-year, $66 million extension that starts next year and runs all the way through 2032, 2033. Jake Ottinger's numbers from 2022, 2023 to now, 106, 40, and 18, 2.52 goals against average, and a 912 save percentage. Again, very comparable to Filip Gustavsson's numbers, just more starts and more wins. And that was, he's putting up similar numbers to Gustafson before he got his mega deal. Andre Vasilevsky, ELC, 3-year deal for 10.5, kind of a bridge deal. Then his mega extension, which was 8 years, $76 million. Vasilevsky's numbers that got him that mega deal, 118, 41, and 10, a 2.53 goals against, and a 921 save percentage. Take away the wins and the number of starts, and again, Filip Gustafsson is right there in terms of the goals against and the save percentage. Let's talk about Jacob Markstrom, too. He has bounced around a tad, started with Florida, moved to Vancouver, signed a mega deal with Vancouver, 6 years, $36 million. It's not necessarily a mega deal. That was his deal with Calgary, 6 years, $36 million, so 6 years per. But look at some of his numbers that led to him getting that deal with the Flames. 74, 65, and 20. 2.74 goals against average and a 914 save percentage. So Gustafson's numbers are actually better than Jacob Markstrom. Ilya Sorokin signed a 3-year bridge with the Islanders, and now his long-term extension, 8 years, $66 million, kicked in this season. His numbers, 82, 59, and 27, 2.58 goals against average and 919 save percentage. Comparable to Gustafson. Jordan Binnington's the final one that I'll go through here. Binnington, he had his ELC, then he signed a 2-year, $8.8 million bridge deal. Then signed after that his 6-year, $36 million contract, which he is currently on. Binnington's numbers before that long-term deal, 48, 27, and 15, 2.6 goals against average, and a 911 save percentage. Gustafson's numbers better than that. So I guess my point being is we have a 3-year sample size for Filip Gustafsson, which is starting to become more of a, this is who he is. We have 2 years of really outstanding goalie play. We have a third season that I will continue to contend was weighed down by a bad month or two. Folks, it's not a coincidence that Filip Gustafsson is among the league leaders in goals against average and save percentage since he became a starter, because he is one of the better goalies in the league. And the Minnesota Wild, I know, have big aspirations for Jesper Wallstedt, and I'm not saying that that's not still the case. But Filip Gustavsson is one of those things that comes into your organization, one of those players that comes into your organization that you hadn't planned for that needs to become part of the long-term future. And I'm not saying an 8-year deal. I'm not saying you have to go to that length. But I will say, I think Filip Gustavsson has more than earned another contract for the Minnesota Wild, and we don't have to worry about it aging like some of the others that Bill Guerin has signed these players to. Gustafson is still young. He is still learning as a goalie. He is still growing into himself as a goalie. And I think there is a really good chance that his deal ages much better, if not the best of any that Bill Guerin has signed a player to on his watch. So just something to consider as we continue to watch Filip Gustavsson just light it up in the pipes for the Minnesota Wild. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. What do you think as far as a new contract for Filip Gustavsson goes? Let me know what you're thinking for length, dollar amount. We know it's probably going to be somewhere in the 8s. But do you agree? Do you think Filip Gustavsson has earned another contract for the Minnesota Wild? And we'll talk it out as the rest of the week unfolds. That'll do it for today's episode. Again, we'll have a little pregame episode for you coming up tomorrow. And make sure to join us for Sunday's live show at noon. Denny is working on always great content for the Sunday show. So make sure to check us out at noon on YouTube on Sunday. Make sure to subscribe if you have not already so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. You can find new episodes every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.